Now a word from our sponsor, MedBridge Healthcare. MedBridge Healthcare is a leading provider of sleep lab management services and home sleep apnea testing. MedBridge partners with hospitals, healthcare systems, and medical academic institutions to offer comprehensive, fully integrated services for sleep disorders.
Cows. What's going on today, Robert?
Well, I thought about doing the drum roll, but maybe I'll save that for the show.
Okay.
We have our person of the year, Gregory Arneaud, who successfully, single-handedly got almost every person in the Caribbean to watch the YouTube version of the podcast, because we had a couple thousand views of just the podcast for his episode during 2023.
And still growing.
Still growing. He has done a lot for sleep medicine. He has been, he's been all over the place this year, traveling, talking about sleep, and sort of wrapped up the year with the introduction of his book called The Wake Up Call. We're going to talk about his book today. I'm excited to have him on the show, and he can show us his SleepTech Talk award that he actually received.
I'm excited about as well. I thought the book was a great book. It's kind of like a diary of sorts. That's the way I saw it, where he slipped in little lessons on obstructive sleep apnea and the need for testing and the need for therapy, and lots of interesting sections, very devoted sections throughout the entire book. I'm just flipping through it right now, and kudos to him for taking the time to do this. It's not easy. I've read about different authors about it. Yeah, Robert is pulling up his copy of the book, and
yep,
I've got mine here. Yep. It's called The Wake Up Call. We're going to be talking about that pretty soon.
You're right. It's a journey, and for him to capture that the way that he did, it is not just his journey; it's the anecdotes that he has along the way that he either learned himself or someone shared with him as a part of their epiphanies in their sleep health. So, yeah, this is going to be fun to get him to expound on some of the really salient points he has in the book.
He might be the only other guy in sleep medicine who dresses better than Jerry.
That's true. That's true. That was a stretch, but.
Oh gosh! All right, I think it's time to go to the show.
Lights out.
Welcome, everyone, once again to another episode of SleepTech Talk, the sleep podcast with your hosts and friends, Emerson Kerr, Robert Miller, and me, Dr. Geral George Mannikarote. Folks, it's the moment you've been waiting for, but you're going to have to wait for just a few more minutes, or a few more seconds, rather. We just want to say thank you to all of you for listening, for spreading the word, and just making this on the top 10 list of sleep podcasts out there. We thank you so much for that. We also want to thank our sponsors. Without them, we just couldn't do this, and we thank them as well. Once again, folks, don't forget to like, subscribe, and most importantly, share this with all the other sleep techs out there. With that being said, Robert, over to you.
Sorry, I had my drum roll occurred too early. The drum rolls, please. We have returning with us Gregory Arneaud, our SleepTech Talk Person of the Year. We're absolutely thrilled to have him back with us again today. We get to talk a little bit about his book that he's put out. He's traveled all over the place talking about sleep, and we're so excited to have him back with us again today. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you again, Rob. I appreciate it. And Emerson and also Doc, thanks for having me.
Hey, before we get started, you gotta show everybody who's gonna be watching the YouTube. You gotta show them the trophy. It's legit.
I gotta pick it up. It's kind of heavy, so let me see if I can reach it to the screen. Yes, thank you for this hardware.
There you go,
man. That thing's huge.
Yeah,
it's nice. It's every time someone walks in the door of my house, they're like, "What is that?" And I have to explain to them, "This is a microphone."
you should tell them you want a Grammy.
There you go. Yes, But thank you again. It's really an honor, and I'm excited for obviously what you folks are doing here and seeing how I can become the man of the year this year as well.
That's never happened before, Greg. We've never had a back-to-back winner. I mean, we've never had a winner until you, so it could happen.
Okay, so we'll leave that open.
That's right. That's right.
Well, we're so glad that you're the winner. You've done a lot of work. Like Robert said, you travel all over the place. You've done a lot of work, especially in the islands here in just off the United States, spreading the word of sleep. You made such an impact online on YouTube, the most number of views of our show, and a huge number of listens on the podcast as well. Anything you want to share about your work real quickly? Because apart from your work, part of your work rather is your book, which we're going to get into in just a little bit.
I guess I would just say it's a privilege to once again come across people like yourselves that are in this industry. It's such a niche space, you know, when people think about sleep and sleep apnea, it's kind of taboo. There's not really a lot of understanding there. So you kind of got to fill in the lines and the gaps. And you know, it's really been a privilege to meet so many people I've met all over the world because guess what? We all have to sleep. And you know, it's affecting people all over the entire, you know, the entire globe, you know, how well we're managing these 24 hours each day that we're given and our ability to restore and repair our minds. So I'm just grateful to be walking, and I believe in my journey and my particular destiny of trying to make an impact in this space and continue to connect with, like I said, colleagues like yourself that are actively trying to make a difference in this space. So it's an exciting place to be. And I guess once you get in, you can't get out. No matter what job you jump from, you go to the next one, you're still in sleep. Just another form of managing it. So, you know, we're all going to probably be here for the rest of our lives.
Well, let's get started with the book. And folks, if you're on YouTube, you can see it's called The Wake Up Call with an awesome glamour shot of Gregory here. And we all strive to be like him when we grow up. It's an
He has the
amazing
second best haircut in the sleep business. Just saying.
Right?
But you know, let's get started with the book. What compelled you to write this book? I mean, it's kind of like a diary of sorts, but you're slowly inserting little lessons in between, slipping it in, making it easy to read. What compelled you to write the book?
I think it was more the fact that I wanted to leave something that even if I had passed away, hopefully that's a long time from now, that the message will continue to, you know, resonate with the hearts and minds of people, especially in the Caribbean where there's very little information and expertise there. I tried to tie in, you know, obviously making it comical and, you know, tying it to obviously the creator of sleep, God. And once again, just what I've learned over the last 25 years as being in respiratory and sleep. And I think that, you know, when people read the book, they'll find some level of a connection of some sort based on their social aspect to it or how it impacts various ways in their positions and their jobs. But overall, I just was wanting to kind of, I guess, validate myself at the same time as a voice in this particular industry of sleep and kind of dumbing that information down to not be as, you know, difficult to understand and technical as trying to read a white paper research or something on a particular study, but helped it to be able to be something that we can relate to. And felt that, you know, it was time for me to do it after coming off of a nice cruise in Barcelona. I read a book by the guy who wrote the foreword on it, my buddy, Dr. Eric Thomas. I read his book. And as soon as I came back, I said, okay, I got to write a book. And there you have it. It happened. And I was grateful to be able to get it done and published on my grandmother's birthday on October 1st. And it was available on Amazon in dedication to her.
Gregory, you know, you talk about your start in the military in the book. How did it affect you in regards to your sleep health and wellness? How did it inform your journey?
Well, it helped me to understand what they were doing. You know, I didn't get it until years later when I actually was writing the book, how they made us so sleep deprived. You know, and from the very first day we got there, they were challenging us with how much time we had to sleep. And obviously there's a lot of anxiety and as young men at, you know, 17, 18, 90 years old, actually leaving their homes probably for the first time, which the majority of us were. It was really a culture shock and a lot of demand on paying attention and focusing and still having to have the ability to function as we know how difficult that is when you're sleep deprived. They happened to figure out after about 6 or 8 weeks of doing this, they would definitely have an idea of what type of individual they were dealing with in regards to a soldier that you would be and your competency in being able to carry out your task. So I understood now why sleep impacts so many of the veterans from many years ago who have seen things probably they can't seem to forget, been exposed to different environments and situations that affect their ability to sleep. Not everybody has sleep apnea, but we know that there's a number of challenges in sleep that people deal with. And at the same time, like I said, it was an eye opener for me to understand the tactical strategy behind it. And I thought it would be interesting to put it in the book.
So can you talk a little bit more about the sleep deprivation? In fact, I mean, you talk about the military and how that got you to think about that, but you have an entire chapter just on sleep deprivation itself. So could you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Well, as we all are sleep deprived, even though we're in the sleep industry, it doesn't give us a hack or some kind of cheat code to get a good night's sleep. But we're all challenged just like all the billions of people are each day trying to sleep day in or night. We live in a 24-hour society. Sleep is constantly on the compass of being attacked, because of so many different things, whether it be the noise, the light, and these phones that we can't seem to get out of our hands, that's affecting our ability to kind of wind down when we need to, and just the challenges of life. And so understanding that, if you're not getting a good night's sleep, it could definitely affect you one day to the next. But it almost took my life as a child. As you can remember, my dad, coming to the United States, coming from Trinidad, the idea was that you had to work to eat. So my dad worked 2-3 jobs at a time, had very little time to sleep, and most of the time we'd be driving around with him in the car, and he dozed off on us one night. Unfortunately, fortunately rather, we didn't hit a object that could have been something could have been more serious, but we kind of just ran into the bushes into a swamp down in Alligator Alley. If those of you know what Florida's like down here with the alligators and every other kind of creature you can imagine. Good thing we didn't know that at that time, but why was it called Alligator Alley? Hello. But we were stuck there, but we didn't have a scratch on us. And then I look back and when I was thinking about sleep deprived persons and people running off the road and mistakes that are happening each day and slips and falls, thought, wow, I might not have even been here today to create this message or this book. So there was a reason why my life was spared. There's a reason why we are all here as ambassadors for sleep. And the purpose that we have is to try to make a difference, in the lives that we're able to connect with and serve through this type of technology and services.
That sort of takes what you say in about Sarah's story, that it's not a luxury, it's a lifeline. Expand on that a little bit, because that's obviously that was a great story, but it also relates back to, you on Alligator Alley. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, yeah, we take sleep for granted. We don't even prepare for it in most cases. It just happens. Our whole lives, we are unfortunately not shown the right things in some certain ways, and sometimes in what we eat, because our family culture, if your family's eating pizza every day, guess what? You're eating pizza every day. And you kind of carry that on, in your lives. But one of the things that I never learned was to appreciate sleep because I never saw it. My dad was always going. The culture behind where we came from was, the pump, no pump society. Like you constantly are going to be on the grind. And when I think about now that sleep is not something you just get to do when you get time off from work, or if you don't have any responsibilities, you can get to spend a little more time. But it's a necessity for life. Why I kind of chose that theme, how you sleep is how you live. At the end of the day, it's basically all comes down to that. You live a life without getting good sleep, it's going to shorten your lifespan. It's going to cause you to have consequences and issues and risks that you may not be excited to know, but it's real. It's affecting your social, impacting within your relationships. It's affecting your attitudes, your moods, your health, and your safety. So, sleep deprivation is real. We didn't make it up. And it ain't ever going anywhere. We're always going to be challenged to try to get a good night's sleep. But I'm hoping, like I said, with the understanding of the importance of why we sleep, this wake-up call is a wake-up call for each and every one of us, to kind of, we got to take advantage of the information that we're hearing and we're telling everybody, and actually cut those phones off and shut it down and get in 6, 7, 8 hours so Rob can get up at 4 in the morning and work out, right, and get through his day.
Me and Jerry both. And
Oh, Jerry.
yeah, oh yeah, Jerry too. No, I appreciate this, and so prior to us actually starting the podcast, I brought up a topic, and I wanted to make sure I get it in before we get to the end of this, because it is something that's interesting. It seems almost a little taboo to talk about sex and sleep, and you sort of hit it head on in the book. But then you also move into men and sleep, and then women and sleep. So you sort of individually sort of speak to you know the issues that men and women struggle with. But you start with sex, snoring, and sleep. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I figure that's the only thing that really we all care about is how well we can sleep next to a snoring partner, and how well we can enjoy our sex lives, because it's a part of our lives as adults, right? And then the sleep aspect of what happens afterwards. So as you see, I tied in a little bit of the understanding of what it's like to be single, dating, maybe having been in a relationship where you had a snoring partner, and how you're not signing up for that anymore in the next go round if you don't wish to go through that kind of lifestyle of trying to get a good night's sleep. I talk about how more than 50% of the people I speak with every day are sleeping in different rooms of their home. This is pretty real, considering you're having a partner and you're getting married and you're excited about what the life is going to be together, and you spend half of it now in another room at night. So that kills the intimacy. We call it sleep divorce, and it obviously leads to other issues. So we take a look at the rate of divorce, and we don't ever take in mind that sleep could be a part of it. That could be the underlying root to some of those causes that cause the disconnect in that relationship. Then I
It's
kind
funny
of wanted.
because you actually mentioned to us that culturally, that in some cultures it's more important. You can get their attention related to sleep issues more by talking about sex than you can talking about high blood pressure and heart disease and all of the other things that go along with having
Man.
sleep apnea specifically. So tell us a little bit about that.
I don't even think it's cultural. I think each one of us as men here, we would be a little
Maybe.
more, keen on trying to figure out how we can avoid certain things that we find it out. But yeah, truthfully, in the space of intimacy and having intercourse and sex, I think we're grown men. We can call it the word it is. That's an important part of our lives. The confidence that we feel in the bedroom, understanding the implications as we get older and our connection to the risk of erectile dysfunction, the nasty word ED. We all, want to be able to have a healthy sex life, please our partners, and have that level of confidence and our ego kind of pumped as long as we can, right? And on the other flip side of it, I just thought about just the depression and the women on the situations where their man is not able to please them anymore because of their health concerns, or whatever the situation may be. And they're kind of where they're at in that space, especially if they're younger, and then also, the libido issues that they have. And, we're always thinking they're not really wanting to do anything because they have a headache, but they just don't feel like it. They're tired. They have a pretty tough responsibility being a woman. I mean, each and every one of us came from a woman, right? And for the most part, we could look at our mothers that had a lot of responsibilities of not just taking care of herself, but her children, her husband, and just dealing with the hormones that they have to on a day-to-day basis, a month-to-month basis. It's very challenging to get sleep. So that's why I kind of wanted to categorize women in sleep in general. Women that are in pregnancy and not realizing the connection to premature deliveries and complications with their children as they're developing more weight in their later trimesters of sleep. Menopause obviously throws a lot of their day out of whack, with all the hot flashes and the mood changes and the hormones imbalance, and sleep is also affected by that. So when you kind of put the two and two together, we both need to get a good night's sleep to have an enjoyable life in the bedroom, right? And that experience that we all enjoy. So, it's definitely something that I think people need to hear. And the most important part outside of that, I kind of like the part about understanding, if you have a partner, how to talk to them, how to encourage them, how to, help them to understand the CPAP is not, the end of the world. You can live with sleep apnea. There's many people around the world dealing with it. The best part is when you get access to the information, how it can change your life and not be as resistant as most people are to understanding the importance of why you should do it.
Great stuff. You did leave off one thing about women, though. They have to put up with us guys. That's the
Yeah, it's part of the. I guess it's part of the deal, right?
yeah. That's right. That's right.
Are you a sleep tech looking for new opportunities? Well, MedBridge Healthcare is one of the largest employers of sleep technologists, and they are growing. If you are a sleep technologist interested in a new position, potential paid relocation, or looking for a career advancement, consider a career with MedBridge Healthcare. Now back to the show.
So, this really dovetails really nicely into what I wanted to talk about next, which was women and sleep. You just hit on a lot of points, and it's something that we've talked about multiple times on our show. And Emerson beautifully puts this out there about how the typical demographics. And Emerson, I'll just throw it over to you since you brought it up multiple times on the show. The typical demographic of what sleep studies are meant for.
Yeah, Gregory, you know this. You've been around sleep a long time, but so much of what when we look at the typical patient, sleep patient, it's a stereotype. It's really someone like me. It's a older white guy. And so now when we look at this, it's just not people of color, but women in particular. We hear over and over on this show, and we've heard it in research about how they're underdiagnosed and undertreated. When you look at that through the lens of your book, and you really kind of peel the onion on that, what is your message there? Because that's as you talked about mothers, we've got sisters, wives, all of the above that are not getting treatment and basically told every day you're tired because you're a mother and you've got a job and you've got all these. What is your message to our colleagues in sleep about how we can do a better job of addressing this amazing population?
Well, man, it was a woman. It was a woman that brought me to the understanding of this. It was my grandmother, and we all have a grandmother. Hopefully, they get to play a part in your lives if they're not obviously dealing with health consequences or situations wherein your parents may not even be talking to their parents anymore. It's kind of sad when you think about it, but women, I mean, like I said earlier, are very much the catalyst to anything that happens. They really run the world. When you can give birth to something and nurture it, and it becomes part of you for that time. That's a different type of a connection that any kind of man can have with their child. Women are just as much impacted, if not more, than us as men. I mean, a lot of men who are stereotyped to think that because of their chin and jawline and the size of their chest and neck, those are typical guys that we would think that have sleep apnea. But after being in this space for almost 25 years and seeing so many different people that have been diagnosed with sleep apnea, I'd be foolish to think that it's only a weight concern. Like there's so many people that's ideal weight and people who look like they're, I mean, supermodels. I hate to bring that experience up, but I had one. I I was a single man and I dated and I met a beautiful young lady and she was basically a supermodel until she went to sleep. Then she was Shrek. It was a whole different ball game. And I thought, how could that be? This doesn't even make sense. But I learned that women are dealing with sleep apnea. They're dealing with their partners that have sleep apnea, and yet they never think they have that issue because men don't kind of really want to bring it up. You really don't want to hurt their feelings emotionally sometimes by telling them anything negative because we know that goes a long way, right? We want to keep it
That's
positive.
because snoring's not pretty.
No, they say snoring isn't sexy, so that doesn't really tie in well with who they are and what they propose to be. So I want women to realize that they're not only sleeping or eating for themselves, but they're also breathing for their child, especially during pregnancies. So this is something that they have to think about when you think about putting down cigarettes or putting down alcohol during pregnancy. It's like, listen, let's prioritize understanding if you may have had a sleep condition like sleep apnea prior to your pregnancy, it's only about to get worse with the added weight gain and the position issues that you have sleeping. So it's very serious to consider, that you could have been the cause of something in your child's life. So, it's something that I wanted to touch on. And at the same time, all of our grandmothers probably have a couple pounds on them. They are the patriarchs of the family. They were the one person. I mean, sure, in the in the different communities that we serve, grandmas play a huge role in a lot of things, that everything kind of goes through grandma. We all go to grandma's house to eat, if anything's going to get done, it's going through grandma as the last say. And I just thought when I lost my grandmother, I thought about everybody else's grandmother and what that person meant. Because to me, my grandmother was like my second mother. I mean, she was the one that would, when my parents would say no, she'd slide me that little $20 underneath the table. She was the one that would help us, get through to our parents if they didn't listen, and kind of give us a little bit of a liaison to helping us get to where we need to get to in life and enjoy some of the things. But I didn't want anybody else to be impacted without hearing this story about my story. What drove me to this. I didn't just get excited about sleep apnea, but it wasn't until I thought I lost even my father to a stroke to this. I said, this thing is serious. Like, people just don't get it. So we love our women, we love our mothers, and we love, what they bring to the table. And not only that, respect what they do on a day-to-day basis and know that their sleep is just as important, if not more, to getting a good night's rest.
I appreciate you saying that and explaining that, Gregory. The question that I have that still remains is, you kind of touched on this at the beginning, is how did you come up with slipping in those lessons in between and then making such a very technical thing? You put it in language that the common man will understand. How did you do that?
I'll be honest with you. I don't think I have that great of an educational level. I don't have, I'm not a master's in English and grammar or anything like that. I just wanted to make it plain that a child could read it and kind of understand what I'm trying to say, and dumb it down to the layman terms that anyone of any kind of educational background, even cultural, consideration, may understand what I'm trying to get at. And I think, it was more that I didn't want it to be like a regular book. I didn't want it to be just a book of information, just a bunch of information. We can go to WebMD for that. We can go to Google for that. So I had to figure out a way how to tailor make it into little stories and, some analogies here or there that people can connect with. Unfortunately, most of the analogies are older because we're older guys. So things that we were talking about from the 80s and 90s, some of the names I'm throwing around there that we were like, oh yeah, but these younger generation wouldn't know anything about it. But, I think all in all, for the reader and the great response I've gotten from people, which is I really appreciate, that people say they got something from it. They enjoyed it. They saw how I intertwined different things and principles, but kind of made it funny and kind of kept them engaged, with understanding. And at the end of the day, they got to learn something about me, so I get to leave a little bit of who I am and how I got to how I am today, in the readers' minds, to be passionate about whatever they're doing in life as an entrepreneur, if it's even in the space of sleep, but at the same time, understanding that, I found my purpose through this, I found my destiny in what I was called to do through this journey. So I'm more excited every day just to wake up to be able to make a difference in people's lives. And that's what kind of pushes me each day.
That's so awesome. Now, one final thing before we close, I've got to ask this. It looks like Robert wants to say something before I try to shut us down.
Well, I did. So he made the statement that he was trying to repeat this year. So I just my last comment was in question is, what are you going to do in 2024 to top 2023?
Well, I won't be writing a book this year. That's not the plans. But this year, I am trying to work a strategy of working with, I'm not going to name the name of the company, but most people put that in these cups, right? And that, it's a wake-up call for most people, right? To have a cup of that good old coffee and caffeine to start the day. So I'm looking to kind of, from a corporate and social responsibility, partner with organizations that are dealing with half their audience and customers that are sleep deprived and help them to get a better understanding of the importance of sleep. Maybe use it as a place to do my book signings in various locations throughout, the United States and the Caribbean. And I'm going to start this year as the first delegate for Jamaica, for World Sleep Society and World Sleep Day. So Trinidad and Jamaica this year will be actively on the ground in Jamaica. We'll be doing something online. And hopefully we'll be able to, like I said, bring some more awareness and education to the area of the importance of sleep. I'm also looking to work with a number of organizations here in the U.S. side at the same time to just drive more persons to getting tested and getting to the access of therapy. So that's basically what I'll be doing this year, no different from the last 10, 15, 20 years. But like I said, with more passion than ever before because of the encouragement I get from gentlemen like you guys that acknowledge, persons like myself that are active in the space that kind of give us that push to continue to keep going because, recognition is always great. I don't do it for that. We all don't do it for that at the same time, but we're grateful when we do get to hear that from our peers.
That's awesome. Although I would say the saga and legacy of SleepTech Talk is probably a good follow-up to your book, Wake Up Call. Just saying.
It's going to be in there for sure.
Well, talking about legacies, there is one point that I'd really want to hit on before we go. And this is part of the reason why you are also Person of the Year. Your work with the Ministry of Health. You, in fact, had a meeting recently with them. Could you talk a little bit about your work with them? Because I think that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, it's kind of like the top of the totem pole. You got to kind of let it trickle down instead of coming from the bottom in some cases. And I was privileged enough to meet with Dr. Christopher Tufton, who is the Minister of Health in Jamaica, Health and Wellness. And he had an appreciation and understanding for the importance of this. He himself actually mentioned to me, he says, Gregory, I believe that at least 30% of this population has this condition. And I'm like, I'm glad you recognized it. And so we're looking to putting things in place he's been proactive in his particular country and helping people to understand the importance of knowing their numbers, getting tested, know your vitals, your blood pressure, your glucose, what's going on with your heart. And this is one area that, once again, that we are not seeing a lot of testing being done is taking a look at what's going on in sleep. So we do anticipate that, with his support and encouragement of getting people to understand the importance of this, we'll see more sleep testing being done as part of a routine test in Trinidad, Jamaica, Barbados, St. Lucia, Guyana, and all the territories we're working with. We're trying to just find that one person that will get behind this and create that ripple effect that will make more waves, in understanding of this, and training more doctors, offering more education to the doctors. I think it's equally important than just reaching out to the client themselves, because they're seeing the patients each day and misdiagnosing or missing the opportunity to possibly diagnose the patients that they're treating for various types of NCDs that are affecting mortality risk there in those countries. So, at the end of the day, if we can continue working with those persons that are decision makers in these particular types of spaces that could encourage persons to get tested and get to the care they need, I think that should be the focus point. And then actually from an economical standpoint, go after the companies that understand the risks and the wellness issues within their employees getting a good night's rest and how it impacts their bottom line, to kind of get them to get a little more behind pushing more sleep etiquette, more talks about sleep, because sleep is not just a one-day event like the World Sleep Day. It's an everyday event. So it needs to be continually reminded to us. And kind of like I said, educating is where it starts. And we're looking to make that change from the top on down.
Well, thank you so much, Gregory. Sincerely appreciate that and that work. And I know it's not easy when you're working with governments anywhere, whether it's here or abroad. So we appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
And folks out there, it's the Wake Up Call. Check it out by Gregory Arneaud. And How You Sleep is How You Live. Be sure to check it out. And it's available on Amazon. We will have a link to the book in the show notes, so be sure to check it out. And thanks once again, Gregory, for joining the show. Congrats once again on Person of the Year. Well deserved, well earned for all the hard work that you're doing.
Thank you, man.
Yes, sir. And folks out there, thank you all so much for all that you've done in making this show a hit. We thank you so much for liking, for subscribing, for sharing. Don't forget to keep that going. We especially want to thank our sponsors. Without them, we can't keep this going on. And be sure to check out our sponsors as well. Until next time, we say, lights on.
Before we go, we would like to thank our sponsor, MedBridge Healthcare. MedBridge Healthcare is developing innovative inpatient, post-discharge, and population health programs to screen comorbid conditions, diagnose, and treat sleep disorders. Learn more about their innovative solutions and career opportunities at medbridgehealthcare.com. Once again, you can learn more about their innovative solutions and career opportunities at medbridgehealthcare.com.
All right, we say this every time, but truly, what a show. Time for some post-cals. What do you guys have to say after hearing this?
It was, I think one of my takeaways is, and I know the three of us have done this as a part of this show, is knowing your story. And, I think for our listeners, I think it's important that they even begin to understand that what is their story and their journey, because as they deal with their patients, how do they connect with them? How do they make sleep medicine and sleep therapy and even sleep diagnostics relevant? And I think the best way is doing what Gregory's done, and that's know your story, be able to tell it, have your anecdotes, because this book is just full of just rich information that compels us to better health and better sleep.
I agree. And the fact is that he waves those stories in, like you said, using your SAT education, the anecdotes. I have to remember that word. And you also used another word earlier, salient. And
Did I use those in Houston, or is that?
Well, I appreciate you using them. I need to improve my vocabulary. I can spell the words, I just can't say them. So, with that being said, I agree with you there. What is really cool is the fact that he brings all this up, but he adds the stories to each and every one of these things, making it easier for you to listen to. And like he said, it was engaging. That's what readers have told him, is that he made it engaging. It's not a white paper or a research paper that you're just kind of struggling and hoping to get through it, and then you go back and just read the abstract, hoping to get the major points or the salient features just through that, because you just couldn't get through the rest of the data. He keeps it in such a way that there are funny stories, there are serious stories, and it keeps the reader engaged throughout the entire time. Robert
I think that it's I think the one thing that he said during the podcast that resonated with me was legacy, and that this is his, if he were to not be here tomorrow, after tomorrow, he's left something that sort of tells the story of his life and the thing that he was passionate about in his life. And that's probably something that we all need to, especially at our age, we need to start thinking about our legacy. And it's more than a job to him, and more than just a career. It's a part of who he is, and what I think he feels like he was called to do here on this earth. So, just love his passion, love the guy, and am glad he was our 2023 Person of the Year.
I agree. And folks out there, I'm going to ask you kind of a call to action here. Let's support the sleep community. There's going to be a link in the information in our show notes for his book. Support Gregory and all the work that he's doing, and pick up a copy. I'm telling you, it's a good read, as you heard us talk about it today, and I think all of you will enjoy it. All right, gents, shall we call it?
That's it.
All right, folks. Until next time, cheers.